The Turn 4 Perspective. Weekly dirt racing news brought to you by Brooke John Peer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to episode 2 of the Turn 4 Perspective. Now, last week, you were supposed to have an episode, but we ran into some technical difficulties, and I'm very sorry about that. So this is why this episode is coming out early today, so that you can have your racing news that you deserve. So after uploading my first episode, I realized that I never told you why I chose my name. The reason why I chose the name The Turn 4 Perspective is because no matter where I'm at, I always sit in Turn 4. And that was also the name of a column I did for Race Pro Weekly, as I'm a writer by, favorite media. So no matter if I'm at my home track of Ranceville Speedway, my neighboring track of Genesee Speedway, or my all-time favorite track of East Alabama Motor Speedway, I'm always in Turn 4. You can always find me there, and that's why I chose it, because it was also a column, and I believe it just has a good ring to it. So that's why I chose that. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to jump into this week's and last week's racing news. So we're going to start off with last week's, and we're starting off with the short track Super Series, of where they ran at Fonda Speedway for the Fonda 200. Now, it ran from Thursday through Saturday, and Max McLaughlin won Thursday and Friday, and then on Saturday, Matt Shepard won. That's to be expected, because Matt Shepard is one of the biggest names in Northeast dirt modified racing. And Max McLaughlin, although he has been running with the Case Construction late models, he decided to come back to his roots of the Northeast Modifieds, and he went and kicked some ass. So that is to be expected. Now, along with that, Matt Williamson did not race at Fonda because of monetary issues. We'll get into that a little bit later, but he did not compete at Fonda, so his name was only listed on qualifying night on Thursday, meaning that he got his points for the short track Super Series, but he never got to run because his team doesn't have the fundage right now. Moving on to high limit racing, they went to Lernerville Speedway on a Friday and Saturday, and Corey Day won on Friday and Tyler Courtney won on Saturday, earning a hefty purse of $50,000. Now, both drivers have had some pretty bad luck this season, and it was pretty nice to see both of them win after having such a terrible, feat. And that score put it at 4 for the high limit racing, 1 for the Invaders, and 0 for the PA Posse, which is pretty bad for the Posse considering that they were in Pennsylvania at Lernerville Speedway for the Commonwealth Clash. And now that means that the PA Posse has 0 points for their team, which isn't the best for them, but they did have some pretty good second and third place finishes, including Chase Dietz and a bunch of the other guys. So, they had a good run, but they didn't earn their winning points, which is pretty interesting, but it's still pretty good. Now, moving on to the World of Outlaws NOS Energy Sprint Car Series, they stayed out on the West Coast, and on Friday, they were at Bakersfield Speedway, where Buddy Kofoid won. Now, Kofoid has been kicking ass and taking names with the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, and he showed that in California. But the most interesting part of that race, I feel like, was the quick time, and that was done by Landon Brooks with an 11.009. Now, what's most interesting about Landon Brooks's run is that he has no sponsors on his car besides the stickers that the World of Outlaws give him. Now, as someone who always goes for the underdog and someone who always hopes to see the underdog succeed, I found that really cool because he didn't have any sponsors on his car. And you hardly ever see drivers without sponsors getting their recognition or getting their, fame. So it was really cool to see Brooks get that, and especially Since he is sort of a no-namer, it was really cool to see him get posted on social media with his quick time. I get an extra, I believe it was $100, and go and get his name out there. Because, it clearly shows that he has the speed. It clearly shows that he has the power, but he doesn't necessarily have the funds that people like David Gravel or even Buddy Kofoid have. Then the next night they went on to Merced Speedway, which is also in California, and Kofoid won there as well. So he has just been making names for himself, and it's been very interesting for him. And I believe that is going to work out well for him in the end, because he is making a comeback after not doing as great in the first part of the season. Moving on to the American Sprint Car Series, they went to Arrowhead Speedway for a Friday and Saturday show where Jason Martin won on Friday and Roderick Crockett won on Saturday. So that was all the news from week 1. Now, week 2, we have a lot more going on. So the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series had a Thursday through Saturday show at Knoxville Raceway. Now, this goes along with why the World of Outlaws Case Construction late models haven't been going along or having their season very much lately, because all of these other events have been going on. So the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series had their race at Knoxville, and it was a Thursday through Saturday show, and Jonathan Davenport won on Thursday. On Friday, Bobby Pierce won, and on Saturday, Bobby went 2 for 2 and came back and won once again. So Jonathan Davenport is a member of the Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series, but Bobby Pierce is a member of the World of Outlaws. So it's very interesting to see how the drivers can switch between series and different competitors and win with each other. I just find that really interesting, and I think it looks good for the other drivers to show that they can compete with each other and, be with each other's series, but also, learn, how they race and stuff. And it's just, really cool to see. So this weekend, the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, they stayed on the West Coast, and they were at Thunderbolt Speedway for the Dennis Roth Classic, which is interesting because Buddy Kofoid has a Roth Motorsports car. So on Friday, Gravel won the race at Thunderbolt Raceway, and Buddy Kofoid came in third. On Saturday, Carson Macedo won the race, and Buddy Kofoid came in second. So although Kofoid wasn't able to come through for his team and his owner and his owner's family, he was still able to get some pretty good finishes and get some good money, which is good, because if not, that would have been kind of awkward. But he podium finishes, so that is really good for him. Moving on, we are back to high limit racing, where they went to Eldora Speedway on a Friday and Saturday show. Now, on Friday, Justin Peck won, and Justin Peck has had some really good finishes this year, but he's never, won, something, this big. So he won, and that was pretty good. And then on Saturday, Rico Abreu won, and Peck came in fifth. So like I said, Peck has had some really good finishes this year, but he hasn't gotten, up there, right? So it was really nice to see him racing and getting up to the top and winning. So that was really good for him. Now, moving on to Northeast Modifieds again. The Super Dirt Car Series had a race this weekend at Albany Saratoga Speedway, and Matt Williamson was the winner of that on Saturday night. Now, according to what I've seen on social media, Tim Sears Jr. got a podium finish with the left front flat tire, and he battled with Matt Shepard and Matt Williamson during that race with the flat tire, and he apparently had a flat tire for 80 laps. I don't know if that's true, but if he did have a flat tire for 80 laps, that is absolutely insane. Um, I mean, 80 laps on a flat left front. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. Um, you know, this is why I consider dirt racing to be the best form of racing, because you get stuff like this. You know, Tim Sears, he may not be a big name like Matt Williamson. He may not be a big name like Matt Shepard. But if he's running 80 laps on a flat left front, that's insane. That takes some serious skill. That takes some serious driving. And I did see a photo of where he was running against Williamson, and his left front was flat. So I don't know if it was 80 laps, but I did see that photo. So it clearly shows that he is going good with it. But if he did run 80 laps, that is absolutely insane. And this is why dirt racing is the best form of motorsports, because if that was in NASCAR, you know they would have been fined for that. When in dirt racing, it's up to you if you want to run with the flat tire or not. And I find that really cool. I find that they're giving you freedom. I find that is just really interesting, and it puts on a show for the fans. So, yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm really proud of Tim Sears for getting a podium finish, especially with that flat left front. So, yeah. Now, earlier on in the episode, I mentioned that we would talk more about Matt Williamson and not competing at Fonda last week. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. So the reason why Matt Williamson wasn't at Fonda competing with the Short Track Super Series, as I mentioned, was because of monetary funds. Now, his team is one of the bigger teams, but if you know anything about dirt track racing, you know that they don't earn a lot of money. I mean, they do, but they don't, right? Like, Tyler Courtney won $50,000, but between his team and himself, Courtney's probably only making around $10,000. So, and these cars are worth probably, no less than $75,000 minimum. So to win $50,000 and to have it split between your team really isn't a lot. So this goes back to why Williamson didn't compete. So Williamson, as we all know, is one of the biggest names in the Northeast dirt modified racing circuit. And I am a personal fan of Williamson, but people gave him some hate for not competing when it's not his choice that his team decided to just go get the points on Thursday night but not compete. Now, I know that he did a post, and he said, look, we don't have the money. We don't want to tear our car up. We don't want to get all this stuff because Super Dirt Week's coming up. More bigger races are coming up, such as the 76er and everything else. So they didn't want to mess anything up, and they went and got their points and stuff. And I personally agree with Williamson on this. They shouldn't have to tear up their stuff. And they don't have the money, like I've been saying, because of the payoff and stuff. So don't give someone crap because they don't want to tear up their stuff and they don't have the money. I mean, if it was up to Matt definitely would have been there. But, I mean, it's up to his team owner and his team owner said no. So they just went on Thursday night, they got the qualifying, and they went and did their thing, and they stayed out of it. And Matt did end up going to Land of Legends that Saturday and winning there anyway. So he did get a win, but he didn't get a bigger win. But that was because it was their choice. So there's that. Anyway, that is all the dirt track racing news I have for these past 2 weeks. And I'm sorry that I didn't get it out sooner. But I do have some other racing news for you, though. So at Lernerville Speedway, Ricky Thornton Jr. made his debut in a sprint car, and it was in the green number 71 Indy Parts race car. Now, Ricky Thornton did not have the best debut. Although he had good qualifying scores, he didn't make either feature. And that is not the best for him because Ricky is a big-name driver in super late model racing. He won a street stock race, which that's very controversial. But he did win it, and Ricky's just trying to live his life, right? But he didn't qualify well. Now, I know that his teammate AJ Flick, who was in the exact same car as him, but was in a, different car, just his twin, he qualified for both races, I believe, and he got to compete in both. I think he finished like 22nd. But Ricky Thornton did not qualify for either. So it's very interesting to see that happen. So will Ricky Thornton continue with sprint car racing, or will he stick with late models? I don't know. We'll have to just wait and see. But I do know that he did not qualify for either race. Now, moving on, in more late model racing news, Brandon Sheppard is leaving Longhorn Chassis and Riggs Racing. Now, this is very interesting because Brandon Sheppard is currently in the points lead for the World of Outlaws Case Construction Late Model Championships. So it'll be really interesting to see if he goes to another team, stays with the number B5, decides to get his own car and start racing that, or something entirely different in general. He said that he was leaving at the end of the season, which is good. But it's still a shocker to the racing world that he is leaving both because he's been with them for so long. And it might be another situation with Tim McCready and Sheppard and Tyler Erb, because I know there was a big mix-up between them a couple years back, and it was like, who the hell is in each car? So it'll be really interesting to see that, and just go and check it out. So that's more news that we're looking to get. If Brandon Sheppard will start his own team, if he'll go to a different team, or if he will pick up another team somewhere else. So that's going to be very interesting, along with if Ricky Thornton Jr. decides to go on and continue on with sprint car racing. And finally, the last tidbit I have is that another driver is dabbling in another series, and that would be Corey Day is going to NASCAR. Now, this past weekend, he ran in the ARCA series and the Truck series at Bristol Motor Speedway. I don't really know how he did. I don't think he did bad, but I don't think he did, podium finish either. But it's very interesting to see all these drivers swapping around, going to different series and stuff, because it's good for our sport. We're getting people from NASCAR coming to dirt. We're getting people from dirt coming to NASCAR, and we're getting people who don't like, let's say late model racing, going and checking out late model races. We have people who aren't going to sprint car races, finally going to sprint car races. So it's very interesting. It's helping support our sport that is slowly dying because people suck. But it's really interesting. They're going and running around. They're bringing more fans to each other, and I just think that's great. As much as I'm not a fan of the guy, because I'm just not, Kyle Larson is doing something amazing for the sport of motorsports. He's getting people from NASCAR to come to dirt because he owns high limit racing along with Brad Sweet, and so people are noticing sprint car racing more and dirt shack racing, and that's great. But yeah, it's really interesting to see all these drivers going around, and just seeing the difference in the sports as well. In NASCAR, so suit and tie, PR, right? And then you go to dirt and, you have Tim Sears Jr. who's running a flat left front for 80 laps, right? So it's just really interesting to see how stuff correlates with each other. and I just find it really, really interesting. Anyway, that is all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your feedback. I've gotten some feedback so far, and it has been really good, so please keep it coming. Once again, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties. This is why this podcast is coming out today, so that you can get the news that you deserve in a timely manner, and I will be sure to make sure that the technical difficulties don't happen again. Anyway, please make sure to go out to your local dirt track. I know the seasons are coming to a close, but there are still a couple out there that are open. Please go to your local one. Please go and give them some money so that we can keep the sport going and growing. Thank you so much for listening, and I will be back next Thursday to give you the latest racing news.
WSBU 88.3, The Buzz.